Welcome everyone to Novac's 2021 webinar series. We're having a topic discussed tonight that's very important for all of us, and with a couple of presenters who are longtime colleagues and friends of mine, so I'm really excited about it. I'm Dwayne Taylor. I'm the Executive Director of Novac, and I'll be doing introductions and handling the question and answer session at the end, but mostly you'll be hearing from our invited guests. Couple of ground rules before we get started. The presentation will likely last something in the neighborhood of 45 minutes, and we ask that you listen attentively. But if you would like to ask questions, you can do that at any point simply by engaging the chat feature or the questions feature on the menu box, which on my computer at least is on the right-hand side. But if you click on the little arrow next to questions or chat and type something in, the Novac staff will review it and make sure we get it asked, provided there's time. And if not, maybe we could follow up afterwards with Andrea and Ty if they have time. So with that, and without much further ado, I have the great pleasure of introducing two of my colleagues who I've worked with for a number of years. And actually, Lou Schuler, who is one of our board of directors, Novac's board of directors, recommended we do this topic. And I kind of kicked myself a little bit because I should have thought of it myself. But once it was suggested, I knew it was a no-brainer. And we have with us tonight Andrea Yu and Ty Van Hooydonk. Both work with the associations, Motorcycle Industry Council, Motorcycle Safety Foundation, et cetera. Both have extensive experience in dealing with the media. Ty was once with Cycle News, I believe, and Andrea was with USA Today for a while, though they may tell you a little bit more about their personal experience. But I can tell you from my personal experience that working with them has been nothing but a pleasure. And I've been overwhelmed with the amount of knowledge they've done and they've provided to me and shared with me. And I think you guys will all get a lot out of tonight's session. And if you can, please listen to these two because they know what they're talking about. And I've learned so much from both of them. And I'm so honored to have them on and have the opportunity to share some of their knowledge with you guys as well. So without any further ado, and in an effort to give them maximum time, I will turn it over to Andrea.
Hi, I'm Andrea.
And I'm Ty, and glad to be here. Dwayne, great to work with you for all these many years.
Yep. So we're both from the Motorcycle Industry Council. I am a Motorcycle Safety Foundation rider coach. I teach on the street. I'm also a certified dirt bike school coach. And Ty?
I still coach dirt bike school, and it's been a while, but I've done ASI training as well, and I was one of the first Rover driver coaches, so really have been out there with a bunch of media guests and influencers, and looking forward to getting out there again.
Absolutely. So thanks again for having us here today. It's certainly that time of year where more people and families are planning their vacations and definitely planning to take their power sports out and having fun, especially now that people are getting vaccinated. So I think we're going to see almost a surge of people enjoying the outdoors. Next slide, please. So both Ty and I have actually worked in the media, and we've done a lot of work with the media. So we wanted to pass along a few tips should you find yourself faced with the media. Next slide. We do have a few good practices. First of all, I want to say that the media is not necessarily the enemy. So you always want to keep that in mind. Usually they're actually just looking to get to understand the bigger picture or really understand the full story, to really know what's going on. And so they'll talk to you, they'll talk to people on the other side of the story. So what you really want to do is, you want to remember that anytime you get a chance to talk to the media, even if you think it's a topic that's, not a great topic to discuss, it does give you the opportunity to get the message you want out there. So a couple of quick tips. One, we always tell everyone, smile. Smile when you speak to them, even if you're just on the phone, because you can actually hear a person smiling. Remember that when you're riding and driving, it's a lot of fun. It's serious fun, I should say. It's serious because it's safety, and then we also want to be serious when we're taking care of the trails and our environment. But most of all, most of us are out there to enjoy it. And going off of that, you want to be polite and courteous, even if the topic is difficult. You don't want to be seen as sort of the angry and aggressive person out there. Another point to make is to get to your point. You want to get to your point, our key messages, as soon as you can. So an interview isn't just about answering the questions. It's often a golden opportunity to deliver the important messages about what we want to do and what we want to be seeing happening out on the trails. So if you know you're going to be interviewed, it's great to sort of prepare yourself, know your messages, practice saying them. I always practice in front of the mirror. I practice saying them when I'm, brushing my teeth. I say it in my head, practice it while I'm driving or sometimes riding my motorcycle. It's good to practice it because practice, and repetition really helps. You also don't have to answer everything. Don't feel like you have to answer all the questions that you're not comfortable answering. So you just stick to your messages and be honest. There's a trick we use, it's called bridging. And so Ty, do you want to do a little role play here where you're the inquisitive reporter?
Yeah, we just had that incident, out there on the local trails where we had, a youngster who fell off and was badly injured. Aren't ATVs just plain dangerous?
No, ATVs are not dangerous. In fact, the vast majority of people that are heading out there on the trails, they're coming back in and they're just fine because they're doing the right things. So notice there, I don't really stay on the dangerous part. We just go and say they're not dangerous because we always like to say that ATVs are not dangerous. And people, most people I know who ride never have issues going out there. Ty, I think you know a lot of people who ride all the time, probably for decades, and we're always doing the right things. And after you say that, you go straight into your messages. So I'd say vast majority of people are heading out there and coming back in, and they're just fine because they're doing the right things, such as wearing all the proper riding gear, they're getting the training. We make sure our kids are riding ATVs that are the right size for them. We make sure that everyone stays on the trail and follows all the appropriate rules and regulations. And then the reporter might come back and ask another question.
Yeah, so why are so many people just having all these problems out there with these off-highway vehicles? We just hear report after report after report about, problem after problem. Aren't these machines just, inappropriate to have out there?
The vast majority of people going out there really just have a great time as long as they're wearing the proper gear and they get their appropriate training and follow all the trail signs. Everyone tends to have a great time and enjoys themselves. So again, you can just repeat your message. I actually, when I was a reporter at USA Today or an editor, I had Ty on the phone once speaking for the MSF, and I was asking him about training. And I do remember I asked him the same question 3 times, but he stuck to his message. And after about 3 times, the reporter is just going to move on because you're going to sound kind of ridiculous after that. Especially if it's on live TV or a podcast, they're not going to keep asking you the same question. But you can repeat your message. You can repeat it 3 or 4 or 5 times. They'll finally get it, and they want to continue with the rest of their story.
Yeah, I remember that interview too. Thanks a lot, Andrea.
It was a test. What's another? Oh, and other one. There's no such thing as off the record. So don't get too comfortable sometimes talking to reporters. A lot of reporters, that's part of their job. They want to make you feel comfortable, so you really open up and you tell them all your dirty laundry. That's what they want to hear. Don't get too comfortable with them. Because anything you say to them is essentially public information. Even if they say like, oh, the mics are off, camera's off, or yeah, this is off record. If they hear something really juicy, they're going to want to try to get it on the record. Even if they said it's off the record, they might be emailing you and say, hey, remember you said this. Do you think you can talk a little bit more about that? They'll come back at it different ways. So remember, when they're turned off, when a reporter is talking to you, anytime, it's fair game. And again, be honest. I think Ty has a really good example of this from CBS.
I do, and I'll add to just what you said there too. A lot of reporters, they have an old trick of turning off the recorder, or saying, okay, the interview's over, and you might think it's over, but it's not. You're still talking to a reporter. And whenever we had a TV interview, for example, and they put one of those little clips on you that has the microphone. They call it a lav. As soon as we were off camera and done, I wanted to get that thing off of me and as far away from me as possible, because that thing is still broadcasting to somebody who could be listening. So I shut my mouth, and I got away from that thing. I got it off of me right away. Now, having said that, being aware that reporters aren't necessarily your friends, you still, at the very best, if you can develop some kind of a relationship with them, it's going to help you out. Okay. Andrea was an example of a reporter out there who we got to have a great relationship, and we got lots of great coverage out of USA Today. I think in part because we didn't have an adversarial relationship. Now, she was still going to ask me hard questions, but that's her job. That's the job of a reporter. And even if you're just dropped into an interview and it's a difficult one, you can still make the most out of it. This CBS interview that I had a while ago, it was on national TV, their morning show, and it was about a bad ATV crash in which a child was harmed. And they were asking me hardball questions. It was not an easy interview, and I was kind of thrown in there at the last minute as a substitute for somebody, so I wasn't all the best prepared. But I got through the interview, and I answered the questions to our liking, giving the answers that we would want to give out there. And at the end of the interview, when it was all done, and everybody was starting to tear down the equipment, I just sat back and I said, "Hey, how do you think I did?" And at that moment, I just opened up to the people who were there, and I was saying, "Hey, well, how did I do as a person?" Because I'm trying to hang on to my job here too. And what do you think? And that really just brought the walls down. And they started talking to me and saying, "Oh yeah, you did this and you did this and did this." And actually, there was a cameraman who started asking me questions about how to get his family into proper ATV training. So I think that that really helped out in the finished product. I think they gave me a little bit more of a break because we had just a little bit of a something there. And I think that whenever you can develop that, that's going to help you out, and it's going to help you out too if you have a long-standing relationship with a reporter. You want to try to make things as positive as possible while always knowing that they still have a job.
Yeah, and I love, Ty, when you say like, how did I do? Because you almost present yourself as you're working with them as a team for this program. So they don't it just flips a switch. They don't see you as, the interviewee or the guy taking, the spotlight. You're helping them put on a good show. So immediately you kind of build some type of rapport with them. And you're opening yourself up, kind of like your vulnerabilities. And so, they feel like you're looking for, some actual criticism or, and they'll be honest. So yeah, that's definitely a great way. The other thing I want to mention too, with not comfortable answering everything, you can, if it is something completely out of your wheelhouse, like sometimes I get questions, we do media outreach and I do a lot of PR for motorcycles. And we talk about safety training and how fun it is. And every now and then someone will try to toss out some legislative question. And I'll just say, that's really not a question I can answer. That's not in my wheelhouse, but I'll try to find, an appropriate person and I'll get back to you. And you can, slide it that way. So you don't always have to answer those questions. You can, again, part of being honest, if you don't know, you don't know. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? We're going to talk a little bit about social media good practices. Remember that anytime you're on social media, you put your picture up there, you're actually being a role model because so many people can see you. Go ahead, next slide, please. So dirt biking and ATVing, side-by-side driving, they're enjoyed by millions of Americans every single year. Most do it responsibly. When you're sharing your own images and videos on social media, we have a few recommendations that can kind of help encourage a culture of safety and fun. Next slide. There we go. First, easy one, all the gear, all the time. I think we all are familiar with this. Again, anytime your image is out there, you want to model good safety behavior. So anytime you're sitting on a dirt bike or on an ATV, or if you're in a side-by-side, have your helmets on, have your eye protection on, your gloves, any of the other appropriate safety riding gear for the vehicle you're riding or driving. Understandably, they say social media, I think it's like you get 30% more likes if someone can see your face. So there are situations where you might be on or near a bike. I prefer to not be sitting on the bike if I held my helmet off, and I definitely have my helmet in the picture as well. Whether it's usually I'm holding it, because I also don't want to demonstrate bad, where to put my helmet, not on the seat. I always tell my students, don't ever put your helmet on the seat. You're just looking for it to get knocked over. So I tend to just hold it and smile. This way they can see my face. I'm not on the bike, so no one can say that I'm actually riding, and I have my helmet there, and I have my other gear on me or near me. So, it looks like I will be putting my gear on when I go ride. Next slide. Another big one to remember is alcoholic beverages. Obviously, never drink and drive or ride. Riding and driving under the influence is one of the leading causes of accidents. And so we don't want to post any images that may have alcoholic drugs in the background. This includes, like, let's say you're doing a camping photo and it looks like your friends in the campfire in the back drinking. You may not be, but someone looking at the picture won't necessarily know that and think you're probably partaking in that. So just be conscious of that, and also be aware of any containers that might also look like alcoholic beverages. I know this sounds like we're being extra careful, but we do need to be that way. Next slide. I think, Ty, you've got the trail stuff.
Yeah, we always want to recommend that, you stay on designated trails, of course, and obviously the Novak audience is going to understand all about that. We want to show, everybody out there that we're good custodians of our environment, and we take care of it, all the right rules, pack it in, pack it out. We want to maintain our access. That is so important these days, and we're only going to do that if we showcase, the right use of trails out there. So, yeah, let's do that. And next slide, please. The other thing we want to talk about too is kid safety, and make sure that your youngsters, your youth out there, they're really doing it right. And we want to show that they're having adult supervision. If you show a child out there on their own, well, it might suggest that they don't have any adult supervision going on. You want to make sure that they're geared up. That they're doing all the right things with that ATV, and they have somebody watching over them. All those good suggestions. ROVs are a little bit different too. We want to make sure that we're sticking to the rules that ROVs or side-by-sides are only used by folks that are 16 and above, licensed. It's important that anybody in a side-by-side, they can reach the floorboards with their feet too. That's real important. So those are kinds of things to watch out for. And let's go to the next slide, please. Also, all those side-by-sides and ATVs out there, they have all these warning labels on. And sometimes I would actually take a warning label with me, or I'd take a key with me. And I make the point that, these vehicles have all of these specific requirements, and you want to stick with them. Age limits, what's the right size ATV for the right age? Make the point too that if you control the key, you control the access. And without the key, young kids are not going to just run away with that ATV without any supervision. That's really important too. So think about the operator's manual and the warning labels. Follow those as well, and then you're going to be in really good shape. Next slide, please. And this one too, we're all a lot of us are probably pretty accomplished riders. And, we just want to make sure you avoid showing off out there, as tempting as it may be. I mean, when you're riding in front of media, when you're, on social media, keep it in check. Ride responsibly. Those are the kinds of images that we want to be showcasing out there.
Definitely. Next slide, please. And to go off that too, remember, always think of your pickiest critic. Who's going to try to criticize anything and everything you do. It might be the smallest thing, you know, you didn't have your gloves on and they're just going to call that out. Oh, look, they're, you know, ATV riders aren't safe because they don't wear gloves. Always keep that in mind. That's what I do. So we've got a couple social media do's. Again, always show yourself in proper riding or driving gear. Again, remember, you are a role model. Encourage people to get trained before they ride or drive. I actually stick this in a lot of my social media posts anyway. If I have a picture of myself riding my motorcycle, I always like to say, hey, don't forget, you know, your best first ride is with Motorcycle Safety Foundation basic rider course, or I shorten that, you know, get trained and then go ride. It's the best way. Always good to remind people to do that. And then show off your community's good work and good deeds. So I've seen pictures of people when they're out together maintaining trails or cleaning up trash. Those are great things to share. Tag your friends who are in there, tag other organizations, because we want people to see more of those things. And it's not just because it's, you know, an anomaly. This happens all the time. I mean, we know that we are the ones, enthusiasts are the ones who take care of these trails and keep them clear for riders and non-riders alike. I mean, people who are hiking use similar trails every now and then, but it's often the motorized vehicle enthusiasts who, you know, do a lot to take care of them. We bring our chainsaws out and stuff and clear away the fallen logs. Next slide.
Don'ts. Yeah. Social media commenting battles. Yeah, just nobody wins with that. So really do your best to avoid that. You know, another good rule of thumb is if you feel that a post that you're about to make is controversial, it might not be a good idea. Well, you know, listen to your gut, listen to your spider sense, and, you know, walk away from it. Maybe come back to it later and you'll probably agree, that's probably not a good idea. I will not press post, you know, so stay away from that kind of thing. You know, don't do anything out there that's going to bring your judgment into question, you know. Think too about, you know, again, like I say, illegal behavior or, you know, bad riding behavior, you know, to stick sort of within the guidelines. You know, you've got the ATV's golden rules, the ATV Safeties Institute's golden rules, and ROVA's top safety tips. You know, if you've got an image or a post out there that's contradicting any one of those tips, it's probably not a good idea to post it. Next slide, please.
Yeah, sometimes even if you're trying to demonstrate like what not to do, I just avoid posting any of the don'ts because it might be taken out of context, and we've all seen that happen on social media many times. So we do have some key message points. These are things that we always like to come back to. They're safe, they're easy. I think it's a great idea to practice a few of these before you are speaking with the media. And again, you can always practice using these messages by putting them into your social media posts. So ATV, dirt bikes, and RVs. They're a great way to spend time outdoors with friends and family. I mean, I just tell this to everyone. We already know that it's a great way to find some adventure. It's a healthy activity because you're outside, you're moving. It's a great way to create some memories, to bond with your family and friends. I think for me, riding helps me clear my mind. It helps me de-stress. It helps me explore areas that I can't just by foot. Or maybe you use ATVs and side-by-sides to, you know, in your cleanup efforts or in trail maintenance, and, you know, or perhaps it's a way to help people who might not be able to. I know some people may have certain issues and they can't hike very far, but they can sit along as a passenger on a side-by-side. So there's just a lot of great things about ATVs, dirt bikes, and side-by-sides that we love to talk about. Another one, again, anytime you ride, gear up every ride. Notice I mentioned this like 5 times in this webinar. It's because it's something that we can just keep going back to over and over. So never fail. Safety is our #1 priority. So it's, again, always good to repeat this. And again, encourage everyone to get trained before they ride or drive. Training not only helps them learn how to operate the vehicle, it teaches them proper body position, safe riding strategies, trail etiquette, ways to protect the environment. And remember, there are both online and hands-on courses being provided by ATV Safety and ROVA. So the online training can also be a great refresher. I believe those are actually free, so you can always send people there to take the class. Oh, next slide, please.
Yeah, and again, we'll repeat it again. Tread lightly. Stay on the trails, follow the trail signage. Those are good messages to put out there, and respecting all the trail users out there. I mean, during the past year, during the pandemic, there were so many more people out there on the trails, and a wide variety of them. And we know that when you're coming across a hiker, jogger, somebody on horseback, bicyclists, whatever, we want to share the trails out there with them. And if we can all do that, then we have a much friendlier presence out there, and people are going to be more accepting of what we do. So take that into consideration too, with your message points, with your social media, with everything that you say. Next slide, please.
And finally, here are a few resource pages that you can familiarize yourself with. These sites offer a lot of safety tips for riders and drivers and passengers. Again, I always like to memorize a few of these safety tips so they just roll right off my tongue, and I just have them at the ready so I can list a few of them right on the spot if someone were to ask me. So what do you do? What's a good thing to do if you're an ATV rider? And again, yeah, these are great resource pages. They have a lot of information. And Dwayne, thank you again for having us here. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, it's great to see both of you again and to work with you again. And I know we talk sometimes, but it's great to interact in this way that seems a little more real. And again, I just want to say thank you, first of all, for being here, and thanks again for being there for me personally throughout my career. And you guys have been a tremendous benefit to me personally. So I just want to recognize that publicly. We do have a couple things. It has been asked if this webinar will be available to review after tonight. It will be. We typically try to get it up the next day or 2 days after, although some of us are on travel. So it may be as late as next week, but it will ultimately be available on nohvcc.org. And I'd encourage you to share it. It's easy to think we know what we believe and want to tell the world what we believe. It's not so easy to understand how that message can be changed when viewed through people who don't share our beliefs exactly. So that's why I felt it was very important, and Lou felt it was very important to have Ty and Andrea on to talk about this. One of the things that I really want to draw out from the two of you is something that both of you have taught me over years, and that's, what if you get contacted by a reporter, and I had a reporter for an interview or someone to be on their podcast, and there's a couple things. When they reach out to you, he or she reaches out to you at the very beginning, should you engage immediately if they start asking you questions? Is it appropriate to ask them to call you back later? Do you have to respond if you have some kind of knowledge that maybe this isn't a reporter who's going to be kind to our industry and our activity? Or are there ways that you can be prepared short of just answering a phone call and delving right in?
Well,
so Ty, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, Andrea and I, neither one of us would just dive in and field that call. There's no way we would do that. And the associations, they all have media hotlines, and we encourage people to send those issues to the media hotlines. And Dwayne, maybe you could share them later. You can find them on the websites. There's media contact numbers available there, but those hotlines are checked all the time. And if you've got an issue, if you've got a reporter that's wanting to ask questions about a specific incident or something, somebody on that media line can research it a little bit and find out and give you some counsel and some advice. We never wanted to just dive in and field one of those things. We wanted to know exactly what was going on beforehand, be well prepared, and not walk into an ambush. There were times when people got my direct line at the office, for example, and they said they were on deadline and they wanted to ask me a question, and I would tell them that, I'm sorry, I'm on my way to a meeting. I've got to go right now. Let me take your number and we'll get back to you. Find out more. Do not let people just take over and run you through the nasty questions that they have.
Exactly. And same, I actually don't pick up, I guess most of us don't, we don't pick up numbers we don't know. And sometimes they'll come across as like, say you see New York Times on there. I let it go to voicemail. Reporters are used to leaving messages because they know most people don't just pick up. They leave a voicemail. They generally will say what type of story they're working on and then how to contact them. If they leave an email address, I tend to, first of all, if it's just, me, I don't have a big organization behind me or I'm a small club, I'll look that person up. I may even, if you know, Dwayne, ping Dwayne, hey, do you know this reporter? Do you know what they've worked on before? Are they friendly or not? If everything checks out okay, if I have the option, I like to email them and say, hey, I just got your message. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you want or what you're looking for? Often they'll go a little deeper into detail. And nowadays, because of COVID, I find a lot of reporters will even say, you know what, do you want me to just email you the questions? That's great. I love being emailed questions
Right.
because then I can work on it. I can run it by Ty, I can run it by Dwayne, I can run it by their lawyers. Is this what we want to say? And sometimes the questions, I'll have to say like, oh, we don't have stats on that, or we don't have anything, on that. And they're fine with that. So again, goes back to you don't have to answer every question.
And there's a difference too between a live interview and one that's recorded. And sometimes you prefer one or the other, actually, because in a live interview, of course, once it's out there, it's out there, and you can't bring it back in, and that can be tough. However, you have a little bit more control over yourself and what actually goes out there, because if it's recorded, they could edit you in a way that really doesn't come off so well. They could take out something that's really important that you wanted to put out there, and they could put in your worst moments, for example. So be conscious of that too.
Yeah, and definitely don't be afraid if it's a recorded interview. Don't be afraid to say, oh, you know what, I completely misspoke. Do you mind if we just do that part again? More than often, the reporters are fine with that because they're human too. They understand, and they don't want to be called out on being the person that just, took something totally out of context, because there are other people who will eventually like call them out on that as well. So remember that reporters are human. They're just doing their jobs. Feel free to ask them questions. Again, a lot of times when they say they're working on a story, my first email back to them are questions to them. When's your deadline? What exactly are you looking for? Can you tell me more about your story? They'll open up a little bit, and some of them are very honest too. They'll say they're working on a story, we've seen motorcycle sales plummet and we think it's this and that, and that's what we're trying to get at. And so that's when I create a message where it's like, well, you're not seeing the whole picture. A lot of times when I even say that you're not getting the whole picture, they're like, oh, okay, because they want to get the whole picture. They really want to understand it. And as far as picking up the phone, I mean, even if it's reporters I know and I have their number saved, so I'll see their name, I don't even pick those up, even if I know who they are, because I just don't want to get ambushed with a question. They may really be on deadline and they just dive right into it. So I just let it go to voicemail.
Awesome. Great response there from both of you. One of the things, we think of live interviews as, some of us who are a little older think of live interviews as being on TV, but with the prevalence and the emergence of podcasts, that's becoming an issue that could be faced by more and more enthusiasts at the ground level. Maybe I'll never be on Fox News, but I was recently on a podcast. So you have live or quasi-live possibilities to be interviewed all the time. And one of the things that I picked up from you two is what to do about dead air. And as the interviewee, do you have to feel responsible for filling dead air? And maybe you could cover what I mean by dead air as well.
Well, that's another great technique, actually, the reporter with a microphone in your face. And if you felt like you gave your desired message point, your response, hey, it's not your job to continue on, you know? It's like, not that I've ever been there, but if you were appearing in court and answering questions, there's a point where it's going to be to your advantage, and then there's going to be a point where you go too far, maybe, and you don't want to keep talking. So get your message points out there, stick to it, and it's the reporter's job to take it from there. Don't feel like you have to continue and flap your lips.
Absolutely. I have nothing more to add to that, Ty. Yep.
Yeah, the only I get to be the hard hitting interviewer on this, so I'm really happy personally to get to do this to you guys. But is it possible that someone on a podcast or other live interview would attempt to use dead air to make you feel uncomfortable?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people out there in the media business who they want to make you feel uncomfortable, and it's your job to get out of that and not feel uncomfortable. You've got positive things to talk about, and you know what? If you can bring it back to good personal experiences, hey, I'll start talking about great trips I've had out on dirt bikes and ATVs in Montana and Death Valley and you name it. I'll just keep on talking about them and pumping up what we do out there and the right ways to do it. I can do that too.
Yeah, and that's actually a technique that interviewers, reporters, journalists are taught, is that reporters are taught to stop talking. So I'll ask, Ty, what do you think about that incident? And then I'll let him answer. And after he's done answering, I'll pause, because it tends, like, psychologically, people feel uncomfortable with dead air and they feel like they have to fill it. And again, it's like Dwayne said, it's not our job to fill it. So you can just say, you put out there, gear up every ride. And you just sit there and stare and smile. And eventually they're going to move on, because they're, again, it's their program. Or even if it's a podcast, 3 seconds of dead air on air is a really long time. So they're going to feel pressure to start to say something. The other thing, like Ty said, I can always come up with, I could just start talking about great rides I've had. The only thing to be careful about that is try not to get into that until after you get your messages out, because if you start talking about fun rides you did and then, oh, we're out of time, you're like, well, shoot, I didn't get to like gear up every ride, I didn't get to like training or, respect all the trail users, then you've kind of like wasted your own airtime. So definitely get your messages out there first, and then when you're done, you're done.
Awesome. We have a question from our good friend Chris Reel, and that's, what do you guys think about providing printed resources to the media?
Well, what type of, so we do have, like, if it's press releases that we've written up, we certainly provide those. And I often direct them to like the ASI.org or ROVA.org, but what kind of printed resources do you mean?
I think I expect from Chris what he's looking for is, if asked a technical question about the impact of sound on an the emergence of an OHV area, would it be appropriate if a reporter reached out to him for him to send him the technical data, perhaps in lieu of the interview, and say, this is what we know about it, and I'd refer you to that reference?
I think it depends, and Ty, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, again, depending on that, I think we did have a question once from a reporter about motorcycle noise levels and decibels. And I think we just sent them to, who was the organization that handles that? Was it the EPA? But we just sent them to that site and what the EPA has listed. I don't really remember us sharing our own research or data on that stuff, especially if it's something that we're going to be using in government relations work. So yeah,
Well,
I'm very careful about, unless it's already public out there.
well,
Yeah,
also, it's also, and that was an opportunity, I think, too, to talk about how, we wanted people with proper muffling equipment on their vehicles and, spark arresters and all that kind of thing. That was an opportunity to give one of our message points about it. And, if we weren't the expert on, that subject matter, well, it's not our job to talk about that. I mean, we might refer to somebody who is an expert, or if we were working with an expert on something like that, well, yeah, then it could be right. I wonder too if the question is about actual printed material that you would send, in the mail. And I think that sometimes in our activities, we're so used to just sending out emails and everything is online. But these days, very few of us are getting really nice printed materials in the mail, and those can be really terrific to receive. You get something and it's almost special, and maybe you attach a handwritten note to it, and can be, again, this is more on the positive side of things. So I went a little bit beyond your original question, but that came into my mind too as well, Dwayne.
sure, and I appreciate that, but I think maybe if we take a step back here, and I'm not trying to push too hard, but maybe we have an enthusiast who might be an expert in his or her personal field, but they're not used to dealing with the media, but they also don't want to miss out on an opportunity. So to put it in context of Novak, let's say they get contacted by, a forum or a podcaster or somebody, and they say, we don't think it's possible for OHV trails to be sustainable. Now, at an enthusiast level, they may want to respond and say, we know it can be, but they may not feel comfortable engaging in a way that you and Andrea might, because it's not what they do. Would it be appropriate for that enthusiast to say, hey, I can't really answer this, but I do know that Novak has a great resource called the Great Trails Guide, which talks a lot about trail sustainability. Here's the link to it. And by the way, if you want to find out more, talk to Dwayne or Mark or Jeff or Laura at Novak.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely.
That would be the appropriate response.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. Here's one that I kind of really want to know the answer to, and I don't know where it's going, so it's fun. But, with where we're at in society and the way things are going, and it seems like almost any issue can be politicized. What if you're an enthusiast and a reporter wants to know if you're a Republican or a Democrat, or if you support, a certain elected official? Is there a way to artfully dodge that? Should you dodge it? Or should we take your advice and be honest? Or are there things where we just simply say it can't be beneficial for us to weigh in one way or the other? Or I genuinely would love to hear both of your thoughts on that.
Andrea, go ahead.
You said it was being asked by a reporter.
Yeah, a reporter, and I use that term as a catch-all because we think of reporters as the old scoop hat and the flip book and the pencil. But today, a quote unquote reporter could be somebody writing for a blog or on a forum or has a small podcast. So we may get non-traditional questions. So I think that might be one of them in our sort of over politicized environment.
And it's good you asked that, because you should always have kind of a good answer in your hat. And I never answer those types of political questions. But you're right. Sometimes people would just walk up and like, by the way, who did you vote for? And you could just laugh it off and say, you know what? And I speak as a motorcyclist because that's what I tend to do the most. But I said, as a motorcycle rider, everybody is part of my community. And, you can either say like, whatever party they're with, we're all into motorcycling and we love motorcycling. Or you could just say like, I don't really talk politics, but you don't have to answer those questions.
Yeah, that's not an area that I would delve into either as well. I don't think that's really, a lot of people's business out there. And, I agree with Andrea. I mean, I think both Andrea and I, we ride with people from, across the spectrum, and that's true. And, motorcycling, ATV riding, side by sides. If we can't get out there and do that together, well, I don't know. It's just not as valuable to me,
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like
Sometimes-
a great response to anybody that could ask that question, right? I mean, I think you just nailed it. And but I think so many of us out here who don't do this for a living feel very uncomfortable, and you've hit on this several times, and I just want to make sure we draw it out, is you don't have to answer the question you're asked, right? You stick to your messages, and if you don't want to respond to a question, you shouldn't feel like you have to, right?
Yeah, a lot of questions about riding and driving. I'll get back to the machine. I'll say, you know what? The motorcycle doesn't know if you're a man or a woman. The motorcycle doesn't know if you're left wing or right wing. It's a motorcycle. It's going to respond to how you treat it and how you operate it. And there you go. You want to go riding or what?
Exactly.
Perfect. The next question is, are you aware of any unique strategies for attracting young riders, say teenage to 30 years old, to join clubs or start riding that can be used on social media?
Unique strategies. Well, I mean, I know there's a lot of products out there that are made for younger riders. And it's interesting because COVID has actually kind of been beneficial in a sense for us, in that it's kind of gotten people to want to go out again. And we've talked a lot of, or we've talked about this too, is like trying to find a youth dirt bike these days or a youth ATV is almost impossible. So it's almost like we got this little, I don't know, boost in helping us get younger riders, and now we really need to help them continue this. And I guess it's not so much the inspiration that's there, but how do you continue to keep them engaged? So there is, social media is a great way to reach out to them. I know at the Motorcycle Industry Council, we're working on some initiatives to try to get more people riding, more riders riding more. There are a lot of things that they are working on as well to do that. So, and what I do at the MIC, which is media outreach, I just reach out to non-endemic, non-enthusiast media, and it's it's small in that it's like, within MIC, but I think a lot of the other OEMs are doing this as well, but really targeting the media that reached that younger demographic. So I've been doing a lot of work lately, actually, with BuzzFeed. Another one is Thrillist. We were able to get someone from Vogue to learn how to ride, and he's written stories about that. So there are ways that we're looking to engage media that really reaches that younger demographic.
And I think too, our classes, let's remember that, you can take dirt bike school ages 6 and up, the ASI rider course ages 6 and up, and you can do this as a family as well. One of the last dirt bike schools I coached in the before times was, a group of high school students, and it was great. And, I was old Uncle Ty teaching these kids how to ride dirt bikes, and that was fantastic. So opportunities like that, you want to make sure you have too. There was also a great example of I think it was 11 years old when we started working with him, but a prodigy from the School of Rock, a guitar player, Maddox Kennerson, and he had developed quite a good following on social media, and we took him through dirt bike school. We took him through the ATV rider course with his mom even, and they have delivered over and over and over again with lots of great posts and shout outs at their concerts and all sorts of things like that. So there are ways to do it, but there's always more to be done. You always want the next generation of riders to be out there, and getting back to the classes, you want to be doing it right. You start out a kid doing it the right way, and getting their parents engaged with it, and hopefully doing it with them. I know a lot of us probably started out there riding with their parents, and that was great. Try to keep that going. That's just fantastic.
And it's not just from the industry, but I think even clubs, even just personally myself, I do have a 125 dirt bike. And if I have a friend who has a kid who's, large enough to ride the dirt bike, I have some property where I live. I said, bring your kid out here. I'll give them a little, lesson on how to ride the dirt bike. I have some gear they could borrow. Another idea I had, again, before times, I told parents, or I just told people like at dealerships, I'm like, hey, why don't you just put up a little sign like host your next birthday party at the dealership? You could let kids, look at the bikes. They don't have to crawl on every single one of them, but there was some area or some parking lot area where you can kind of cordon off and let them have their party. It might be fun. So there are ways that other people, enthusiasts, yourself, can just sort of draw in the younger crowd.
Yeah, and I've actually participated in dirt bike school birthday parties for kids, and you know, getting someone behind the bars. I mean, that's the best way to get somebody excited about motorcycling if they have a good first experience, or ATVs.
Great, thank you. We're going to wrap up here soon, but I do have one question because I think both of you have experienced it, and I think I have as well. But what if someone has taken your advice and they've been prepared, they took their time, they responded when they were ready, they feel like they stuck the message, they provided the info they wanted to, and then at the end, the story comes out or an edited recording comes out or what have you, and it is a misquote or a misrepresentation or something was taken out of context, and you feel like the individual would feel like they've been slighted in some way, and they've been misrepresented, and the message they believe in their heart they provided wasn't what was reported. Is there anything you can do? Is there anything you should do? Is it worth it? Or what do you do when that happens?
I'd say absolutely. I mean, if you were misquoted and taken out of context, and you see politicians do this all the time, whether or not it's true, go back to the reporter, email them and say, excuse me, or hey, I thought this is what I meant. And just try to figure out where the miscommunication was. If they're insisting on them, being right, you can always say, I'd like to speak to your editor. The editor's information's usually there. But don't just let it go, because it is your name and your reputation on the line. So definitely, if you're misquoted and taken out of context, I would not hesitate to try to correct that.
Agreed. And getting back to how some of these interviews are handled, Andrea said, love it when you can respond by email, because then you have a record of what you actually your reply was. I love it too when there's some kind of recording being made of the interview. A lot of times, my favorite interviews would be when I was interviewed on the phone, and I'd be talking on the phone, but I'd also have a recording device only recording me. I was hearing what I said, because you're not allowed to record somebody else if they don't know about it and if they don't agree with it. But if I was recording myself, well, I had a record of myself and what I actually said. And I had a whole big stack of old cassette tapes in my desk at the office. So if anybody ever questioned what I actually said, I could pull that thing out and I had it on record. That's how safe I was.
Awesome, great advice. And I just want to say thanks again for being on our webinar. And I think this has been very enlightening. And I, for one, am very happy that our industry and our sports have some media professionals like yourself that can handle some of the biggest and heaviest questions. And I will share out, in fact, I'll team up with you guys to perhaps share out something with our entire email list and on our website about the media line and who can use it and when they should, because I think all of us have skill sets. Some yours are particularly suited towards dealing with media and understanding what to do when asked difficult questions, and that isn't all of our skill sets. So it's nice to have that resource, and I'd love it if the two of you would partner with Novak to push that out to our readership so that they get a sense of what they can and should do when approached with something they're uncomfortable with. So I'll commit to following up with you guys on doing something about that. With that, thanks again. Thanks to everybody who has participated. If you're on now, please know we are working on more webinars coming up in the future. We had a bit of a lull. It wasn't because of a lack of ideas or desire to do them. We've simply been having some scheduling issues, but we have a great slate of things coming up. We will likely do something around ATV Safety Week, and we have some other great topics that I think will be interesting to all of you. So stay tuned. If you're not already, please register at nohvcc.org to receive our emails. You'll get notifications of webinars like these. We always get outstanding guests like Ty and Andrea, and I'm so pleased that they were here with us tonight. So with that, I'll wrap it up. But thanks to everyone who participated, and one last big thank you to Ty and Andrea. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Thanks for all you do. Appreciate it. Everyone at Novak.